How did you get involved in politics?
So I got back involved in 2013 when Barbara Ann Keffer knocked on my door.
Barbara Ann Keffer, she is a councilwoman who is also running for office this year on your same ticket, correct?
Yes, she's running for re-election. She was elected in 2013. And she had knocked on my door to get my before she was elected, to get her petition signed. And we had a really long conversation, and I expressed a desire to get involved, and so she got me connected. And in that 2013, I went canvassing with her. I worked my polls, which there hadn't been a committee person for a couple years at my polls that was a Democrat. So I would go and I set up a table with tablecloth, and I had literature out on that table. And then within a couple years, I got a sandwich board. It's a huge sandwich board that I put out, and I put yard sign up on top so anyone who's driving up and down Parkview can see it and know that it's election day. And that's one of the things that I discovered, that as I became a committee woman, that a lot of people don't know it's when the elections are. They don't really, if their committee people are not active and are not canvassing their neighborhood prior to every election, they don't realize it's an election. They don't realize they need to come out and vote, or what the issues are, or what the candidates are. So I've made sure to go out and talk to my neighbors and let them know what's coming up. And then I became the 4th district leader in 2014. And that's where I live, is in the 4th district of Upper Darby. And so I've been canvassing the 4th district and letting everyone know, that there's an election and so forth. And it's important. And by doing that, we've increased the Democratic voter turnout as well as registration. So in the last so many years, the registration of Democrats have increased in Delaware County, where we have the majority of registered voters. We just got to get them out to vote.
So let's talk about that 2013, when you said that you were the first Democratic committee person.
Yes.
In 2013. Describe how many Republican committee people there were at your poll.
On average, there's like 2 or 3. Mine's a smaller poll in theory. There are some polling stations where, like the Drexel Hill Middle School, where there's 2 precincts at that one polling location, and then there's like 6 to 8 Republicans and like 1 or 2 Democrats handing out information if we're lucky. So Democrats have had a problem of having to go through the Republican gauntlet just to get in to vote.
What do you mean by that? What's going through the Republican gauntlet?
So they're coming from a variety of sides, and they're all, handing out the Republican literature because they're getting a paid day off to work the poll.
And who is they? When you say this, be specific.
Those working in Upper Darby Township.
The poll workers.
The poll workers, but the committee people for the Republican Party. For those who work there, they're all there.
Laura, what effect does it have for a voter in Upper Darby to come to a poll and see 6 to 8 committee people or supporters of a candidate to be forming a gauntlet before someone wants to come in to vote?
It's very intimidating. A lot of voters don't actually vote because of it. A lot of or if you manage to make it through. So there's 2 different versions, right? There's the primary version, and then there's the general version. In the primary, you have the problem of, if it's a school board election, the Republicans have cross-filed as Democrats. So if you're a Democrat and you don't know the difference between Republicans acting like Democrats and actual Democrats, you say, oh, well, I'm a Democrat. So they take their Republican handout, they flip it over and say, oh, well, here are the Democrats. It's the same Republican candidates, but on the Democratic side. So if you're not...
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is Republicans have literature during a primary for school board candidates or judicial candidates are also allowed to cross-file. So what a Republican committee person will do is, if someone says I'm a Democrat, they will hand out literature and said, here is a Democrat endorsed.
No.
Here is the Democrat endorsed candidate. Republican will hand it and say what?
They won't say Democratic endorsed because they can't say that. But they'll say, well, here are the Democrats.
And who is there when they say
the Republican candidates that are cross-filed as Democrats?
And what is in fact what's going on?
It's that you're still going to vote for Republicans.
But they've cross-filed as a Democrat.
They've cross-filed as a Democrat, so they say, oh, here you go. Oh, you're looking for the Democrats? Oh, here you go. And they did that to me one of the first times that I paid attention. I was like, wait, I flipped it over. I'm like, but they're the same people. I don't want these people. I want the real Democrats. And they're like, and at the time, no one was at my polls to give me that information.
So if the Democrats could not cover, if the Democrats did not have poll workers at a certain location, like you just told us,
right.
You just told our viewers that you were the first Democrat in Upper Darby. So before you were there, we viewers can assume that at that time during a primary for school board candidates or judicial candidates, that Republican committee people were saying, here are the Democrats, when actually what was happening is they were promoting Republican registered candidates that had cross-filed on the Democratic side of the ballot.
Right. So at each precinct, so there had been committee people at my precinct, but there had been a gap of a couple years when there weren't committee people to work the polls and give out the information. So when I got involved in 2013, I was the first one there for a long time, or for a couple years really. And so yeah, I was handing out the actual Democrat slate information. And it's something that my voters from my precinct, now they expect me to be there. When there are ballot questions or initiatives, they're like, okay, Laura, what are we doing? What's the question? What does it mean? And I have my big sandwich board and all the information's on it, and we go there and we talk through it. And the sandwich board has a sample ballot on it, and it's much farther. It's like 200 feet away from the door. It's not the one that's outside the polls. It's the one I get that I put up to be able to talk to the voters about and educate them about what we're going to vote about.
As you said, you have Democratic principles, and during a primary, you wanted to come in 2004 and vote for Democratic candidates. But when there's only some people at the poll and they happen to be Republican, you don't even know who they are or aren't.
Right.
And you come and they say, here are the Democrats, they're misleading you,
yes.
Is what they're doing. People who are registered Republicans are actually registered as Democrats.
Right, and that's part of the reason why they've been able to hold on to control of the school board. This year was the first year that we, and I don't know how long, probably feels like forever, that the Democrats had a full Democratic slate that made it through the primary, and actually are on the ballot for the general election.
Laura, we just spent some time discussing one version of the gauntlet, and that is during the primary. But what's the other one? What's the general election gauntlet?
It's the same type of thing. You just don't have the cross-filing confusion so much anymore. Though I do have to correct myself. There are some judges that have cross-filed on the local elections. So some Democrats that you might vote for as a straight Dem, you are voting for a Republican.
So, again, please continue what a general election gauntlet is like and how it can be intimidating to a voter. So
the gauntlet, it's pretty similar as far as you have a lot of people that you have to maneuver through. So as a voter, you still have to go through the committee people for either party to get to the door. Now, hopefully people are just, respectfully respecting one another as far as telling, respecting each other's time talking to the voters. Sometimes they don't. But then, there's just a lot of people that are handing out information to voters.
And that must be intimidating for someone who just wants to go in and vote.
And that's why we as Democrats, having at the Upper Darby Dems, we're making it a point to make sure we have people at every poll, not just one person, but multiple people, to make sure that our Democrats have someone to go to give them the right information so that they can vote, have an educated voting process, and feel comfortable at the polls and not feel intimidated when they go to the poll.
You have been saying this, but what do you do as a committee person? What are the functions and duties?
Right. So it's going and talking to your voters, reminding them to come out to vote, to talk to them about issues that are important that are coming up, and just making sure you're there and helping. Like if you have anyone new that moves into your neighborhood, to go and talk to them and make sure they have voter registration, or if they're not going to be able to come out to vote, make sure they get an absentee ballot application, and just let them know what the process is, let them know where they go to vote, basic sharing knowledge, and it kind of helps you to talk to your neighbors and get to know who your neighbors are, and it's a really good way of connecting with people.